Swarn, it's a pleasure to be here to talk about sprouting, which is one of the most important topics in the world today, which most people are unaware of.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Doug, for giving your time. So I would love to know to begin with. Of course, I know about your background and have read a lot about you. So apart from your family challenges as far health is concerned, that was one of the motivation for you to move in with more of plant-based diet and getting health conscious. What were the other reason which made you realize that it is something you have to be persistent, you can't be giving up?
Well, I think for one, we are in a situation where the natural resources of the world are compromised. So that's a very important one to think about. How do we use the environmental resources we have in the most efficient way? Another one is that we have people today that are hungry around the world. So global hunger
Yeah.
is a big issue. On the flip side of the global hunger, we also have global obesity. And the obesity and the diet leads into other chronic illnesses, like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, etc. So it was a very compelling all in. And then the access to high quality food is limited. So where I came from in New York City or San Francisco or Los Angeles, we had access, but it was at a financial premium. So the idea that you could grow your own organic vegetables in very small footprints for low
Hmm.
cost and then have organic vegetables in very generous amounts fast, because normally if you're growing a garden, it could take weeks or months or years. But with sprouts and a sprout garden, you could grow that in days. So that's why this is such an important topic to me.
Wow, wonderful. So, how was this decision? Was it after Juicero, or how was it before the time, or it's been like while you were plant-based, you just started with the sprouts in your day-to-day routine, and then you later on thought of taking it to the world. How was it?
Well, I was first exposed to sprouts 25 years ago, and I loved,
Hmm.
the alfalfa sprouts and the mung bean sprouts and sunflower sprouts. But I always thought of them as a very nutritious food, but as a garnish. And then when I moved to the desert, I did not have access to organic restaurants and vegan restaurants. So sprouting went from being a nice thing that I knew about to being a necessity that I relied on heavily for a primary source of my calories and micronutrients.
Hmm. Wow. So tell me about how is your daily routine during this COVID? How do you, what is exactly keeping you up to, sustain this lifestyle, and how do you maintain your own composure about not being able to go out and not being able to interact with anybody? Of course, you live in desert, so I think you are already used to of it. But still, I mean, how has it been the journey for
Well,
almost a year now?
I think, I've had almost the same routine before and after COVID, right? I get up in the morning, I meditate, I soak in the hot springs, then I go for a run, 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers, and then I do my
Hmm.
work, and I do my work till about noon, and then around noon I take a break and I eat some fruit, and then I go back to work, and my work could be anything, from research to phone interviews to writing. So I do that kind of work, and then mid afternoon I eat some sprouts, and then evening time between 5 and 6 I have a dinner, which is usually a large salad with avocados and seaweed and a lot of sprouts. And I grow my own sprouts, so you
Yeah,
know.
I've been following that. Yeah, it's crazy. I love the kitchen. It's like so much. It's a small kitchen, but it has so many variety of sprouts, which is amazing. So I would love to know that, how exactly this idea of book came to you, because of course you were doing your work, and you were trying to do the sprout thing in your lifestyle. You were getting it into your lifestyle, but how did that idea came that you should share it with others also, and like create a revolution kind of a thing, because
Yeah,
I don't see it coming.
well, I started to sprout, and then I started to keep journals and charts and guides documenting my experience, because although people were sprouting alfalfa sprouts and mung bean sprouts, um, I started to sprout from A to Z: alfalfa, arugula, azuki, broccoli, radish, clover, um, and all of the sprouts. So I started to keep journals, and I realized that there was nuance and difference within how to sprout each part. And then, although
Mm-hmm.
right now I'm highly recommending people using jars, right, for sprouting, I didn't have that conviction in the early days. So in the early days, I was sprouting with soil, with sprouting medium, with unbleached paper towels, in jars, in trays, in bags, and once I got the rhythm of this, and I started to
Hmm.
see how effective it could be, that's when I
Yeah.
said, wow, there's a reason why everyone should be sprouting. There's a how to sprout. There's, if people, so much of culture is dependent upon people eating together. So I decided
Yeah.
in my book we would create recipes so people could create dishes, from salads and soups and entrees and desserts and wraps that were sprout based. So we created 40 recipes that were all raw, all plant based, and about 50% of the ingredients in the recipes are sprouts. So we were finding
Wow.
ways of getting sprouts into the diet. And then
Wow. Wonderful.
I looked at sprouts as very medicinal. So I researched
Hmm.
and interviewed medical doctors, nutritionists, dietitians to figure out, what did they think about sprouts? And almost
Yeah.
uniformly, they were all huge proponents of sprouts. So as I was learning, I was documenting, and then I didn't want this information to just stay within me. I felt that this
Of course.
information was so powerful. Like, just take a simple example of lentils, right? And lentils are very popular in your country, they're popular around the
Yep.
world. Most people cook their lentils. If you soak lentils, in 2 days, you double the antioxidant levels, you triple the
Yeah.
vitamin C, and you quadruple the volume, so that 1 cup of lentils becomes 4 cups of lentils. And if you let them keep growing, it will become 6 cups or 8 cups. And the lentils going through a biological transformation from a dormant living organism into a vibrant vegetable. And leaves will
Yeah.
come out, and the leaves, when they see daylight, will conduct photosynthesis. So there's all of
Yeah.
these things that are happening while people are sprouting.
Yeah, wonderful. So I would love to know that, when you are sprouting and you are doing this process, what exactly would be the right process to do? Of course, it is there in the mention in the book, but someone who is just listening to us and wants to begin with it, what should be the right approach to start doing that?
I think the easiest thing is to get the highest quality sprouting seeds, whether they be lentils or broccoli seeds or alfalfa seeds. Get the highest quality seeds. I prefer organic seeds because I don't want them to be sprayed with pesticides or glyphosate. And then high quality water, and then a glass
Hmm.
vessel. I prefer glass. And then
Yeah,
they make
a mason jar. Yeah.
mason jars, and they make custom lids, but you could just as easily use a cheesecloth and a rubber band. And
Got
I
it.
would say I'm posting almost several times a week different parts on my feed at Doug Evans. Um, and you could see it's very simple. And what
Yeah.
makes the sprouting so powerful is that it is so simple and that you get the results so fast.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And couldn't be any easier. And even a kid can do it. It's like that. It's very simple. You just have to soak the water, soak the lentils inside the water, and you're sorted in a way. Right. So I would, like since we are discussing about organic seeds, I would also like to know that, like you have tomatoes, you have certain vegetables where you have got seeds inside them when you cut them, like melon, like, the tomato. There are many other fruits and vegetables. Is it possible to start using those seeds as well at
Well,
home?
well, those seeds are not um, are not at a stage where they've been
Hmm.
developed for food. So you
Hmm.
could certainly sprout them. And like
Hmm.
if you were to take a squash that has seeds
Hmm.
in it, those seeds will sprout and they will look very much almost like mung bean sprouts and they will grow.
Got it.
If you take the
Hmm.
seeds that are in peppers or in tomatoes that are commercially available, those seeds typically have been hybridized over time so that
Hmm.
those seeds do not have the vitality to reproduce themselves. So they may
Got it.
not give you the best results from a flavor or texture. So that's where I
Okay.
recommend if you're looking at sprouting for food or sprouting as um, vitamins or sprouting as medicine, you're best off buying specific seeds that have been grown for the deliberate intention of sprouting.
Got it. Okay. So, is there a challenge with certain seeds like soya bean or yeah, I have experience with soya bean especially. They don't grow with sprouts usually. So, I mean, what do you say about that?
I
That
mean,
kind of
actually,
variety of.
I've had very good results with soybeans. The key to the
So, okay,
soybeans is that you have to give them a lot of space so they can't be crowded
okay,
one on top of another. You have to rinse them frequently, and then midway through the sprouting, it's important to remove the hull or the outer skin so that um, the sprouts can actually get more air, more oxygen, and grow. So it's just a
okay,
process. And in most of the, whether you're doing lentils or you're doing mung beans or soybeans, the soybeans, really it's important to remove the outer level, the outer skin, because otherwise they'll get slimy. But you have to wait until they come
mm.
off on their own, or you're at risk of damaging the sprouts.
Oh, okay, sure, got it. So, have you ever challenged because you're eating sprouts and you're eating more of the raw vegetables and everything? Have you ever challenged a B12 or a lower on a B12? Because as a plant-based eater, I see some of the people challenging with B12. And what do you suggest for that? What exactly? How do you take care of that?
I think B12 is very easy to supplement, either with a sublingual
Mm-hmm.
pill, or an under the tongue drop, or even an intramuscular shot. But I think that the, the B12 is probably the least of problems for people when they think about
Okay.
this. It's something that it's easy to point to as something you could be
Hmm.
deficient in. So the two
Yeah.
things, the nutrients that you can't get from sprouts very easily are vitamin D and vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is
Yeah.
easy to supplement, and vitamin D, it's important to get outside and get the vitamin D from the sun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you suggest a nutritional yeast? Have you tried ever that from Bragg or
I
any of the brands?
I've tried that. I'm not it hasn't easily been incorporated into my diet. So,
Mm-hmm.
I know people are successful with it. It's not something that I do on a regular basis.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Wonderful. So, coming to people who are athletic and they want to put a plant-based plan. So, what exactly their plan should be when they want to transition to a full-time plant-based? Because they are athlete and they have to run a marathon or they have to run a distance beyond marathon. So, I mean, of course, they can start with Sprout, but what do you say? How should the approach be to transition? Because you have been, you have crossed that time itself. So, what do you say for those kind of people? What
I think I think
can
it's
be done?
I think it's important to know that athletes in almost every sport have been very successful with a whole food plant-based diet. And
Yeah.
so the most important thing is to make sure you're getting enough calories. So if you're starting off the transition, to plant-based, it's important to find the things that you like and eat as much
Hmm.
of them as you like until you're not hungry or you're full. So that's one approach. There's also um, meal plan guides, whether it's the Rich Roll meal planner or the Forks Over Knives meal planner. So there's different guides that can help structure the meal plans, and then you can prepare the food that give you both the combination of flavor, variety, as well as nutrition.
Yeah, got it. Sure. So, I mean, is it like any challenge for like when you are trying to adjust with your protein when it comes to you are doing with sprouts, or people have that kind of inhibition? Of course, you can get a lot of material. There is a lot of research, but what I'm trying to ask here is that to our listeners, what do you say that how do the protein is a big part in everyone's life. I think it's too much of focus on protein is there. So what do you have to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a much greater issue, as Dr. Will Bolshevitz wrote in Fiber Fueled, that we have more of a fiber deficiency and a fiber problem than a protein problem. And that if you're
Yeah.
eating enough plant-based calories and you're eating enough variety, you'll get the amino acids that form the proteins and you'll feel complete.
Yeah, got it. Wonderful. So, coming to your own transition, from being a person who is now completely into vegan lifestyle. So, did you ever thought in your initial days that you would be someone like being a plant-based person, and you are being in a Sahara Desert and that kind of sorry, Sahara Desert. I'm saying in a desert in California. So, did you ever imagine this kind of a lifestyle? Did you envision it or manifested it, or it was something it just happened?
I think that I was always a city dweller and pretty much always a meat eater. And once I developed and became aware of the plant intelligence,
Hmm.
then it was no question in my mind that
Hmm.
I had to stay plant based, and I knew that I would never eat animal products again. I never
Yeah.
thought of that as a career,
Hmm.
and I never thought of myself as a spokesperson or a leader. What happened is, as I started to live my own life, the things that I was doing in an ordinary life, like putting on a suit
Hmm.
and going into an office or, you
Yeah.
know, doing something that wasn't contributing to helping the world, I found
Yeah.
myself less and less motivated to do that and more inspired to do things that were sharing this message. And so over the last 21 years, I made a 100% commitment to the things that I was doing were going to be committed around health and well being and wellness.
Wow. Wow. So, was there any point where you could trip, or you could say that you lost it, or you were like there was a point where you were regretting it, or something kind of a breakdown kind of
No,
a thing?
not at all. I mean, as I went plant based, I became happier and more flexible. and lighter. And, I just love the journey. And, my biggest regret, if there were any regrets, is why I didn't do this sooner.
Wow. So, how did you handle your personal people, like especially the naysayers or the social circles, social weddings, or all those social kind of a gathering? Because you were a CEO, you left, you had an organization, you had to meet a lot of people, and all those kind of people where you have to, of course, encourage them, but in a sense that you have to mix with them. They need to
Yeah.
like you as well.
Yeah.
So how was that
I mean,
transition?
I think that was very easy. I mean, fundamentally, if you want to do your own thing and you have a tenacity of conviction around what you're doing, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter what other people do or say. The only time you're going to have conflict is if you try to convince other people to do what you're doing and you try to tell them that they're wrong. So my approach
yeah,
is much more about attraction and sharing information rather than telling people what to do or what not to do or condemning them. So I'm
mm,
seeing people sprouting around the world, and they're adding their sprouts to meat, chicken, fish, dairy. Um, and would I prefer if all those people were doing all plant based? Of course, but I am just happy that they're adding sprouts to their life, and I'm hoping that by adding sprouts to their life, they're going to add more vegetables to their life. They're going to become more awake. They will shift their microbiome and ultimately do
yeah,
better in their own lives. And that's the best we can do. But specifically, I'm very comfortable going to dinner with people and only drinking water if there's nothing on the menu that I deem quality enough food that meets my standards. I have no problem saying, no, I'm just drinking water. And I've done enough
mm,
fasting, dry fasting, juice fasting, water fasting,
mm,
to know that you can miss a meal, you can miss a day, you can miss a week, and nothing's going to happen. Only good things happen. So I almost look at it as a powerful opportunity for me to be totally present with the people that I'm with while they're eating or stuffing their face, and I'm drinking water, that I'm awake and I can participate. And to me, I don't have any shame, guilt, remorse, or anxiety about being the only person not eating.
yeah. I mean that's absolutely incredible because I think the most of the times when we are trying to transition or we have taken that decision of not being being plant based or not going to eat something or not being part of any suffering. The only challenge is I feel is a social part
Yeah,
most of the times, and that's why I wanted to discuss on that more on detail because I remember you mentioning even about a wedding, where you had a plan of going, but because it was a turtle made of a neck, yeah, I think it was a necktie,
yeah,
and you
black
didn't want
tie,
it to go
black
with
tie
head wear.
event.
Yeah, black tie. Yeah, so you didn't want it to go with that, and you thought it is better to not to go in the wedding or not to wear it and go without that. And I mean that kind of a, the stand to your ethics. How do you do that? How do you feel for people who are in transition and not able to do it? What do you
I
say
think
for
I,
them?
I
What
think
do you
you have
have a message for them?
I think you have to have compassion for where people are at the time, and also, not be attached to anything. Like at some point, like
Hmm.
most tuxedos are made out of wool, right? They're black
Yeah.
and they're made out of wool. And I don't wear wool. So,
Yeah.
what I'll do is I will dress up, with the nicest clothes that I have out of respect and out of beauty, but I'm not going to wear something that compromises my values just to satisfy somebody else. I have no interest in
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah. Wow. That's wonderful. So, what do you say about be as a person? You are someone who is a manifester, or is someone who is a doer? you would be like more in action, or will be more of manifesting it and then getting into action?
I
How do you say that?
I mean, I think the idea is that I like to do things, right? And I'm willing to, step out of the normal realm to take risks.
Hmm.
So the greater the risks
Yeah.
you're willing to take, the greater the rewards. And also,
Uh,
I'm also willing to be uncomfortable, right? So, whenever you start a new endeavor, like right now,
yeah.
I hold the book in my hands, and the Sprout book is 288 pages, 60,000 words. At one point, that was an idea, right? And
Yeah.
then, it was, 5,000 words that were all disorganized. And I think if you
Hmm.
persist and you continue to persevere and develop and do the work, eventually you can take an idea and turn into something that is finished product that you can be very proud of. But it's work and
Yeah.
it's sacrifice.
Yep.
And I'm happy to do the work and I'm happy to make the sacrifices for the greater good.
Absolutely. So how did that idea came? Were you a writer all the time? Like,
I never,
of course, you mentioned
no,
about your journal.
no. I was only taking notes. So I didn't go to
Okay.
college. I wasn't a good writer. I didn't write essays. And I just felt like this information
Wow.
needed to come out. So I was comfortable going outside of my comfort zone and doing something
Hmm.
that I thought would be helpful to many people.
Wow, wonderful. That's very encouraging, actually. So, coming to one of your journey as a CEO for Juicero, I would love to know that, since you are not much associated with the organization at this moment, and there are a lot of learnings, but as a CEO, if you look back to that organization and people who are hearing us, what are the five things you feel that a person who is just starting a business or starting something new completely, you would love to share them, that what they should do in their career before they put on a plan or before they start investing in some organization they want to do?
Well, look, I think it has to do with, do you really believe it, right? Right? Do you have something that you really believe in? Um, do you have ideas of what you can do to get closer to the realization of that idea? And are
Hmm.
you willing to do the work that's required? Because it's very difficult to start something new. It's very difficult
Yeah.
and it could take a long time. So if you're not willing to devote whatever time it takes and whatever
Hmm.
time period duration that it takes, then don't start it. But if you have a big
Hmm.
idea, then I encourage people to go for it with everything that they have. You have to just go for it. And that's it.
Yeah.
Those are my things. I don't know if it's 3, 5, whatever, but you come up with an idea and you
Yeah.
go for it. But don't go for it
God.
because if you don't believe in it, because it's going to be difficult, and if it's difficult, you're going to quit very early on if it's too difficult and you don't believe in it.
Absolutely. And like, since you're mentioning about if you don't believe in it, so what is that core thing which should be able to connect with your goal? Like, something like right now you're doing about Sprout, and you have been doing it for a while, and you have been plant based. So is there a duration, or what exactly is that? You feel on gut feeling, what exactly is the right word, that when you say that it is belief of what, in a sense, the blueprint, or what is it?
I think what happens is when you become obsessed with something and
Hmm.
you start thinking about it day and night and dreaming about it, then you
Yeah.
have to execute on it. And that's what it really
Correct.
takes. Like to me, I have to be obsessive about something in that level of passion so that I'm willing to do the work. Because
Hmm.
otherwise, it wouldn't be interesting enough to do it because there's a lot of things that are very frustrating, along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But do you feel that sometimes it's about oversharing with people? Because, like, giving an example, like when you are not in a situation of sharing much about your organization, or there is a challenge of, you know, things are not surely planned out, and you just share with people, is it something like a jinx, or kind of a fear that shows up in your work, or shows up in your progress of that organization? Do you
I,
believe in anything like that?
No, I think that the whole thing is many people might spend too much time talking about the things versus doing it. Like,
Hmm.
I think it's very easy to go talk about things, but it's hard to do things. So the hard part is
Yeah,
to think about what do you have to do to execute. Like, I wanted to write the book, right? So I said,
yeah,
okay, what's going to be the chapters? What's the outline of the book, right? And then I jumped around and I worked on the things, but I could go talk to people all day long. Hey, I want to write a book on this, but that's not going to get the book written. What's going to get the book written is having the
absolutely.
discipline. And when I decided I needed to write the book, I made a goal and I set a timer. And every day I wrote 500 words for the book. And it didn't matter whether I
Wow.
was tired or whether I was hungry, whether I had to go to the toilet. I did my 500 words and I wouldn't get up until those were done.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely shows in the book. I have ordered it, so I'm yet to receive it, but I've read it on Kindle a bit. So yeah, coming to book, I would love to know that how exactly you planned the book. Like, because it talks about variations. There is a variation of people struggling with food. There is malnutrition, the aspect to how you can grow a sprout, or you can start doing it, then the recipe. It's amazing how in a small package everything is covered very nicely. So please, would love to hear from you how exactly
Well,
this
look,
happened.
I didn't think I was going to write multiple books. So I wanted to make
Hmm.
sure what was important to fit in to the book. And then I felt that, you know, a book is a big commitment for someone to read. Like, you may spend
Yeah,
15, $20 to buy the book, but you
yeah,
may have to spend 5 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours reading the book. So it's a big commitment that you're asking people to buy a book and then read the book and follow the information. So I wanted to make
yeah.
sure that this book would be complete enough that they would be able to get the message and be able to get
Hmm.
going on their sprouting journey. So it was my journey, why to sprout, how to sprout, what to do with the sprouts, and then resources and footnotes because I wanted to document everything clearly in the book.
Understood. Wow. Any one book which you ever always feel that, yeah, I can read this book till the time I'm there. That kind of a
I
feeling.
don't think there's many books like that. Like, to me, once I process the information, I'm done. I get it.
You're good.
Um, so I think on the nutrition side, a book that I really liked that I read 30 years ago was Fit for Life by Harvey Diamond. you know, I loved, the early
Okay.
Gabriel Cousens books, Conscious Eating, and the early
Mm-hmm.
David Wolfe book, Nature's First Law, The Raw Food Diet. So those were books that helped shift my thinking, along the way.
Got it. Wow. It's wonderful. So last question for the day would be that five things you are grateful for, or you feel that you are blessed.
Well, for one, I feel grateful to be alive, right? Two, to
Yeah.
be aware of what's going on with diet, nutrition, medicine, like having those
Hmm.
experiences. I think
Yeah.
three, just the abundance that I'm able to create, where I can know that I can always eat. I know how to forage, I know how to eat greens. So I feel like, I will always have food. So I feel very grateful
Yeah.
for the food. I'm grateful for my
Yeah.
family, my wife, my brother, my friends, so many people, that I get to work with. And
Yeah.
I think it's just an incredible time to be alive.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think that's a wonderful point, and that is how I think everyone, I hope, listening to us counts their blessings. And with that, I just wanted to say again that thank you so much for being available, and I hope to reach back to you again, and maybe one day I come to your Airbnb and see you, meet you in person. So I hope that can happen sometime.
All right,
So,
Swarn. Thank
yeah,
you so much for having me. Good luck.
thank you so much once again, Doug. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.